Chapter 138. When Elvis came back with 2 pieces of bear intestines, Sandy had already asked Bode and the rest to build a stove and boil water. Elvis was a little surprised at the matter of boiling water, but the smell of the thing in his hands was too strong, so he did not dare to get close to Gu Mingming. He just stood at a distance and asked, "Xiaoming, do you still want this?" Gu Mingming turned around and saw Elvis carrying a piece of intestine that was as thick as her arm. It was bloody and dripping with yellow liquid, and the stench almost made Gu Mingming vomit. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. But thinking of the heavily injured Adali, she clenched her teeth and said, "Yes, this is very important." Elvis's sense of smell was much more sensitive than Gu Mingming's. The smell of the intestines almost suffocated him. But because it was what Gu Mingming wanted, he carried it along the way and did not throw it away. But Elvis was not willing to pass this smelly thing to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming also did not have the intention to wash it herself. She was kind but not to the extent of being a saint. Hence, he turned around and said to Bode, "Bode, go and wash that bear's intestines for me. Clean them inside and out." Bode slammed the table and said, "Why me again?" Gu Mingming spread her hands and said, "Because I can only remember your name." Bode thought to himself, "What the F*******K? But he was helpless. Gu Mingming had a strong backing and he could not afford to offend her. Not to mention Elvis and Leah, who were already emitting a strong aura. Just Sandy's unhappy gaze was enough to send a chill down Bode's spine. Resigned to his fate, he pinched his nose and walked to Elvis. He took over the bear intestines from his hands bitterly and transformed into a leopard to fly downstream to wash this stupid thing. Elvis looked at his own hands and said, "I'm going out for a while, I'll be back in a while." "All right." Gu Mingming knew that Elvis had a sharp nose. The smell that was still lingering on his hands must have made him break down. He must be going to wash his hands. Sandy moved closer to Gu Mingming and smiled meaningfully. "Gu Mingming is really the #1 beauty of Saint Nazaire. Even Elvis is used to reporting to you, he even needs your approval to wash his hands." Gu Mingming did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You're thinking the wrong way. Leader is just more of a gentleman." Sandy nodded perfunctorily and asked, "Then what do we do next?" Gu Mingming used mud to extinguish the fire and waited for the water to cool to a suitable temperature before asking Sandy's partner to help carry him to Adali's side. She used a small leaf to scoop some water to clean Adali's wounds, then scooped some water to carefully help Leah wash his hands. When the green-faced Bode returned, he washed the bear intestines again with warm water and made Leah use his fingernails to tear the bear intestines into thin strips that could barely pass through the fishbone needles. When everything was ready, Gu Mingming handed the fishbone needle to Leah. "Daddy Leah, I'll leave the rest to you." Leah took over the fishbone needle but only stared straight at Gu Mingming. He had no intention to proceed to the next step. Gu Mingming thought that Leah did not know what to do, so she guided him again. "Daddy Leah, don't be nervous. Just sew up the 2 sides of the wound and don't let the wound open like this. I believe in you, you can definitely do it. Do your best." But Leah twitched his mouth. "My hands will be dirty if I do that." Gu Mingming nodded. "It will definitely be stained with blood. You just have to wash it." Leah said, "But you're the one who washed my hands. How can I dirty them for other males?" Gu Mingming, aside from the topic. Chapter 139. Under Gu Mingming's repeated coaxing and guarantee that after Leah was done with Adali's wound, Gu Mingming would kiss him and wash his hands clean. Only then did Leah reluctantly start stitching Adali's wound. She had to admit that Leah was really awesome in some professional fields. The tenacity of the raw gut suture was not good, but he was able to stitch up Adali's wound with ingenious angles and strength without any experience. Adri was a real man. Without anesthesia, he didn't even let out a groan. He clenched his teeth and stared at Sandy, as if there was nothing he couldn't endure as long as he could see Sandy. The entire process only took about 3 minutes. When Leah placed the last stitch perfectly, Gu Mingming's heart finally relaxed. To be honest, Gu Mingming felt her heart ache just by looking at him. But he was her best friend's man after all. She still had to avoid arousing suspicion. So Gu Mingming told Sandy, "Hurry and go take a look at Adali. I will go with Leah to the stream to wash my hands and come back later." "All right." Sandy did not know how to take care of an injured person, so she just followed Gu Mingming's instructions and sat beside Adali. She stared at Adali, who was forcing himself to smile, and gently wiped the sweat off his face. Leah transformed into a snow fox and carried Gu Mingming on his back. They came to the upstream of the stream and without a word, they directly rushed into the water. Plop plop plop, Gu Mingming and Leah fell into the water separately. Gu Mingming stood up with a chuckle and wiped the water off her face. She saw Leah standing in the water completely naked. The stream's water barely reached his waistline and the two mermaid lines were faintly discernible, causing one's imagination to run wild. His broad shoulders and narrow waist were graceful. He was not as muscular as Elvis and did not look as strong and powerful as Elvis, making others not dare to underestimate him. However, he had a sense of strong and healthy beauty. His skin was translucent and fair like jade, but did not have a hint of femininity. Gu Mingming could always sense a demonic or immortal aura from him, but she had never confused his gender. His silver-white long hair was casually draped behind him, glistening with a watery light due to the stream. Under the refraction of the sunlight, there seemed to be a rainbow halo. Daddy Leah was too much of a foul. I really want to pounce. What should I do? Leah stood at his original spot, his eyes filled with unparalleled charm. He raised his slender and bony hands from the water, creating countless ripples. With his palm facing upwards, his fingers naturally curved inwards while his index finger extended forward. Then he hooked it lightly and called out in a hoarse voice, "Meng Meng, come over and help me wash." Puff! Gu Mingming could only feel something flowing out from her nose. It was sweet and hot. Gu Mingming touched it with the back of her hand. Damn, it was bleeding again. Li's reaction was even faster than Gu Mingming's. The water did not seem to pose any resistance to him as he glided to Gu Mingming's front. He wrapped one arm around Gu Mingming's waist and the other gently lifted her little chin to tilt her head up. He frowned and his gaze was filled with heartache. His crimson thin lips slowly moved downwards, pressing against Gu Mingming's lips. Thump, thump. Gu Mingming felt that her heart was about to jump out and her nose was bleeding more and more profusely. First kiss? Was it going to be sacrificed here? Under such a situation where her nose was bleeding all over? Other people's first kiss was very romantic. Why was her first kiss so pathetic? But why was there a vague sense of anticipation in her heart? Aside from the topic, in reply to QQ Reader, love is like a song, the string breaks and the person scatters. Thank you baby for your suggestion, I will try my best to speed up the pace. As for feelings, you said that it was too cruel to treat the orcs with the modern concept of love. This point cannot be denied. But baby, please think about our Gu Mingming. After all, she had just transmigrated a few days ago. It would be too difficult for her to accept the settings of the venerable female of the beast world, polygamy and having to get married immediately after her period. She had to go through an adaptation process. Using an old saying, the most generous love is to give you time. If a man is not even willing to spend some time on you, what right does he have to say that he loves you? Chapter 140. Just as Gu Mingming was about to close her eyes, Leah stuck out his pink tongue and licked Gu Mingming's nose lightly. That crimson blood was like cinnabar on his lips, making him look extremely seductive. Leah used his index finger to wipe the blood from Gu Mingming's nose into his mouth, then looked at Gu Mingming with misty eyes and said, "Just as I thought, you are very delicious." Gu Mingming quivered and woke up from the crimson romantic bubbles. She pouted and asked, "Daddy Leah, don't tell me you want to eat me up?" Leah said thoughtfully, "That's a good suggestion." Gu Mingming looked up and whimpered, "Daddy Leah, please don't eat me." However, Leah smiled and licked her little nose again. This time, his movements were delicate and slow. Gu Mingming's entire attention was focused on the tip of her nose. She could clearly feel every minute movement of Li's, and even clearly saw him sucking on her little nose at the end. Licking his lips with his red tongue, Li's bewitching face stopped inches away from Gu Mingming. Li's thumb caressed Gu Mingming's lips, his long and narrow eyes were filled with unconcealed desire. "Be my partner or food, which would you choose?" Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with desire. I don't choose either," Gu Mingming said as she started to struggle. But her little strength was not worth mentioning in front of Leah. Leah held onto Gu Mingming's waist with one hand and supported the back of her head with the other, fixing her firmly in his arms. That seductive face slowly moved to Gu Mingming's ear and he whispered in her ear in an intimate tone, "Why don't I choose for you?" Li's warm breath sprayed onto Gu Mingming's ear and she felt her heart palpitate. Damn, she was concerned about her life and death and she was actually feeling amorous. No. Gu Mingming stuttered as she rejected. But Leah did not have any intention of letting go of her. Instead, he lowered his body slightly and both of their bodies sank into the stream. Unknowingly, Leah had already carried Gu Mingming to a very deep position. The water did not even reach Li's chest and Gu Mingming's feet could not reach the ground at all. In order not to choke, Gu Mingming could only wrap her arms tightly around Li's neck and whimper. Leah looked at Gu Mingming who was in his arms and said seductively, "It's all right, it won't hurt. I will eat you up so that we can fuse together and never be separated again." Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with tears. "What? Daddy Leah, don't do this, don't. Gu Mingming struggled with all her might but it was useless. Seeing Leah revealing his sharp teeth and slowly approaching Gu Mingming's slender, snow-white neck, Gu Mingming was so scared that her face turned pale and she even forgot how to cry. Was he going to die in Daddy Lee's mouth? The play ends here? Did that beast deity bring me here from the swimming pool just to add food for Daddy Leah? Sob, I must have a fake father. Gu Mingming's imagination was running wild when she felt a warm sensation on her neck. It was wet and slightly painful but it did not feel like the pain of being pierced by teeth. This feeling was a little weird. Gu Mingming tried her best to use the corner of her eyes to look at Leah who was lying on her neck and called out, "Daddy? Leah?" Aside from the topic, babes, remember to vote for me every day. Chapter 141. A numb feeling came from her neck. It was a very unfamiliar feeling, but Gu Mingming knew that it was not the feeling of her throat being bitten off. She could feel her heart beating inexplicably. She was flustered but she did not resist and even felt a little enjoyment. After a long while, Leah finally let go of her neck. Then he looked at the red mark on Gu Mingming's neck as if he was admiring a piece of art. So pretty. Leah caressed the mark he left on Gu Mingming's neck. Gu Mingming touched her own neck. There was no wound. She lowered her head and looked at her neck from the reflection in the water. Then her face heated up and instantly turned red. "Daddy Leah." Gu Mingming covered her neck shyly and said angrily, "Why did you randomly plant strawberries on other people's bodies?" Leah did not take it to heart. He pinched Gu Mingming's little face and said, "You look especially good when you are about to cry from being bullied." Gu Mingming's nose was bleeding. She covered her neck with her little hand and raised her red face. She snorted but could not say anything to refute him. She was being flirted. Gu Mingming was very clear that she was definitely being flirted with by Leah. "I'm the only one who can see this delicious look of yours, okay?" Leah held onto Gu Mingming's wrist gently and slowly pulled her little hand down to place it on his chest. His gaze was full of sorrow. Every word that came out of his thin red lips made Gu Mingming's heart feel like it was an open shell being touched by a gentle hand. That tender and sensitive nerve sent a strange stimulation, making Gu Mingming's blood boil and her face burn up. Gu Mingming could not care less about the hickey on her neck. She only used her still mobile hand to pat her face with water to cool down her burning face. Li's smile looked so unreal under the refraction of sunlight and water. It was as beautiful as poppies on the other side of the ocean, exuding a fatal temptation. Li's lips slowly approached Gu Mingming again. This time, it landed firmly on her lips. He did not intrude nor did he move away. He just kissed Gu Mingming with his lips sticking to hers, using this method to convey his appreciation and adoration. After a long while, Leah slowly moved his lips away and asked with a suggestive tone, "Regarding kissing you without permission, should I apologize or confess?" Gu Mingming's mind froze. Why did these words sound so familiar? After being stunned for a moment, Gu Mingming finally recalled that this was the line she had told Sandy in Descendants of the Sun. However, Elvis had forcefully imagined a Chiang Yao drama and paired her and Yu Jin together, so the story only ended at this point. Gu Mingming pouted. She was a little unhappy that Leah had to copy someone else's confession and was not even willing to think of a confession himself. She mumbled, "Why are you copying him?" Leah held the back of Gu Mingming's head gently and kissed her forehead. Then he replied, "As long as it's something you like, I'm willing to learn. Even if I have to destroy myself and become someone else's shadow in your eyes, I'm willing." Her heart was stabbed harshly. Gu Mingming was filled with guilt for her complaints just now. One of her hands was pressed against his chest by Leah and had not released it. Gu Mingming just went with the flow and laid on Li's chest. She pressed the side of her face against his bare chest and listened to his strong heartbeat. Once, twice, mating was too heavy a burden. Gu Mingming knew that she could not make such a promise. But maybe dating would not be bad. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xian Bao and Qin Xiaoyu for your tips. I have truly received all of your encouragement. Also, I don't want to waste time explaining which is better between NPCs and 1v1. Everyone has different views on love and values. We don't have to force everyone to agree with us, right? In order to not cause more misunderstandings, I won't reply to NPCs and 1v1 messages anymore. Chapter 142. Confess. Gu Mingming said softly with a blushing face. The corners of Li's lips curled upwards slightly. Something in his heart seemed to have calmed down and spread throughout his entire body. Leah changed his posture and used his forearm to support Gu Mingming's but, hugging her like he was carrying a child. Using his other hand to lift her chin, he looked at Gu Mingming with eyes that could drown a person to death and said, "In my name, I swear to the beast deity that I will pledge my loyalty to you for the rest of my life. From today onwards you are my god, my life, my everything." Gu Mingming's face was burning hot and she felt all the blood in her body rushing to her head. Pursing her lips that were dry from the heat, Gu Mingming said hesitantly, "What I mean is, I can date you. I'm not ready to mate." Gu Mingming had already explained her views on love to Leah long ago and Leah remembered the dating process that Gu Mingming said to him. Leah was already very satisfied to be able to transition from friend to lover in such a short time. He did not want to force Gu Mingming. No matter how badly he wanted to mate with Gu Mingming and become the rightful person by her side, he had to respect Gu Mingming's feelings first. How could his woman be wronged? "Tell me, what kind of relationship is it?" Leah approached Gu Mingming's lips slowly and stopped at a fingertip's distance. He asked in a slightly hoarse voice, "Is it a relationship where I can kiss you whenever I want to?" Gu Mingming knew very well what would happen if she nodded her head slightly. Her heart was beating wildly and she replied with a single sound in anticipation and shyness, "Yeah." Leah lifted her little chin and gently brought her lips into his mouth. This time, Li's tongue entered Gu Mingming's mouth nimbly, tasting the sweetness in her mouth wantonly and greedily. Until Gu Mingming was almost suffocating, Leah then released her reluctantly. Both of their gazes were in a daze and Leah could clearly feel the solid throbbing in his left chest. He knew very well what this familiar yet strange feeling meant. Leah could not explain it clearly, but he was once again certain that he could not let go of this female Gu Mingming in this lifetime. After all, it was almost winter and the stream water was still somewhat cold. Leah was afraid that Gu Mingming would catch a cold, so he did not stay in the water for too long. He did not know where he had lost the beast skin dress when he transformed and he was not in the mood to look for it, so he just carried Gu Mingming up to the shore. He knew clearly that Elvis had already caught up to them and he had clean clothes for Gu Mingming to change into. In other words, Elvis must have seen everything just now. Leah and Elvis hoped that they could successfully separate Gu Mingming's feelings for him before Eugene arrived, or even directly replace him. They had the same idea and did not need to discuss it verbally. They had such a tacit understanding. This was also the reason why Elvis did not show himself even though he was already nearby. But this did not mean that Elvis could tolerate Leah threatening his status as the first partner, and Leah indeed did not have that intention. So Leah planned to carry Gu Mingming to Elvis's side. Firstly, he wanted to get some clean clothes for Gu Mingming to change into so that she would not catch a cold. Secondly, he wanted to take the opportunity to explain to Elvis. Out of topic. In the middle of PK, little babies, remember to vote for me in QQ Bookstore. Chapter 143. But Li's thought made Gu Mingming very conflicted. Damn it, Leah was naked. She did not feel anything when he was in the water just now, but now that she was out, the scene was too erotic and Gu Mingming's nosebleed was about to go out of control again. Daddy Leah. Gu Mingming hugged Li's neck and stopped Li's actions of going ashore. Leah stopped in his tracks and smiled dotingly. "You're still calling me Daddy Leah?" Gu Mingming was speechless. Damn it, calling her own boyfriend Daddy, why did she feel even more embarrassed than before? Between lovers, what kind of address should there be? Leah was clearly asking sincerely, but to Gu Mingming, it sounded like he was asking a question that he already knew the answer to. The blush on Gu Mingming's face did not subside at all. Holding back the surging emotions in her heart, Gu Mingming said shyly, Then what should I call you? Lele? Or Yaya?" Leah heard it and obviously did not like it, so he shook his head and said, "Just call me Daddy, it sounds much better." Gu Mingming deeply felt that Leah was purposely teasing her. But facing Li's face, Gu Mingming could not bring herself to be angry. She just bashfully punched Li's chest lightly. To show that she was angry, Gu Mingming directly called Li's name, without any form of address. "Leah, are you planning to go back like this?" Gu Mingming's little eyes peeked downwards secretly. Since Leah was her boyfriend now, it should not be too much for her to take a look. Leah followed Gu Mingming's line of sight and looked down at his half-hidden body in the water. He asked with a sincere face, "What's wrong? You will be seen by others like this." Gu Mingming felt that she had overestimated her psychological endurance. She dared to say anything when she was joking normally, but it was her first time seeing a real gun right in front of her. She only took a quick glance and quickly looked away. But even so, Gu Mingming still felt her heart jumping to her throat before she could see anything clearly. Leah thought for a while and tried to understand Gu Mingming's words. But he really could not figure out what the problem was. Wasn't everyone like this? Gu Mingming looked at the 3 words "I don't understand" clearly written on Li's face and instantly felt embarrassed. She thought to herself, does this beast deity not care about anything else besides whether a couple gets a divorce or not? You don't even bother with the least bit of weathering? But thinking was just thinking. Gu Mingming could not be bothered to complain about the beast deity's anti-image from the neighborhood committee. She was only thinking about her blue friend and could not let others see his nude picture. She thought for a moment and pretended to take off her clothes. As she slowly untied her belt, she said, "My clothes are also covered in fish scales and it smells like hell. Now that it's wet, it's not comfortable to wear. I might as well take it off too. Then we can run back to Sandy's place naked and let the tribesmen see us naked." Leah, on the other hand, tapped Gu Mingming's little nose with a faint smile and said, "Elvis is already waiting over there with clean clothes. With me and him releasing our aura together, even mosquitoes would not dare to come close. After you've changed your clothes, we'll go to Sandy's. That way we won't be seen naked." Chapter 144. As Leah said that, Elvis had already walked out from the shade of the tree. Gu Mingming was like a child who had done something wrong. She lowered her head and did not dare to look into Elvis's eyes. As for Elvis wanting to be her godmother, she already knew that it was a misunderstanding. But why did she not dare to face Elvis? Gu Mingming did not want to think too much and did not dare to think too much. She just lowered her head and twisted her fingers. "You will get sick easily wearing wet clothes, change." Elvis reached out and took Gu Mingming from Li's hands. He then said to Leah, "Transform into your original form before coming out. She doesn't want others to see you like this." Leah nodded and did not ask why. He transformed into a fox and lightly shook off the water on his body. His fur became fluffy and he did not look like a drowned rat at all. It was as if he had used a hairdryer to dry his hair in the blink of an eye. TSK, even the heavens would look at one's appearance. Gu Mingming thought about how long she usually had to dry her hair and deeply understood the favoritism of the heavens. However, her blue friend was really good-looking. No matter if he was in human or beast form, he was so good-looking that one could not take their eyes off him. Elvis carried Gu Mingming to a place that was sheltered from the wind and then started to remove her clothes. Gu Mingming crossed her arms in front of her chest and said, no need. I can change myself." Elvis's hand paused in midair and he stared at Gu Mingming with his deep gaze for a long time. Finally, he slowly lowered his hand and turned around indifferently, saying, "I will guard you from the side. Call me if you need help." "All right." Gu Mingming felt a tinge of guilt. She was the one who provoked Elvis without knowing the situation. Ever since they met by the lake, everything she did was enough to cause him to misunderstand. Although it was unintentional, now that she knew that the beast world's view on love was very different from hers, there was no reason for her to let Elvis continue to misunderstand. Moreover, since she had already decided to date Leah, she could not give Elvis that kind of illusory hope. So, Gu Mingming called out while changing her dress, "Elvis, are you still there?" "I have always been here." Elvis replied. Gu Mingming said, "Leah confessed to me and I agreed." Elvis remained silent for a long while before slowly replying, Gu Mingming said, "Where I come from, a female can only be with a male. Since I've agreed to date Leah, I won't have any other romantic partners." Elvis's voice was still indifferent, as if he did not care, but asked carefully, "Then, what about you, Si Jean?" Gu Mingming smiled helplessly and shook her head. "Is this joke not over yet? Didn't I tell you that this is just a story and there is no such person? Even if there is, his female is called Kang Moyan and not Gu Mingming." Silence. Another long period of silence. Just when Gu Mingming almost thought that Elvis had left, Elvis finally asked, "Then, what about me?" This time, it was Gu Mingming's turn to be at a loss. Her hand that was fastening the shoulder strap suddenly stopped, not knowing how to answer this question. Time seemed to have stopped and Gu Mingming's mind kept repeating Elvis's sentence, "What about me?" This was a simple question made up of 3 words, but she did not know how to answer. Elvis turned around and walked over from behind the rock. He took over the little shoulder strap from Gu Mingming's hands and fastened it for her. He said while fastening it, "You are now in Saint Nazaire, you just need to follow the rules here." Gu Mingming still did not say a word. She just looked up at Elvis's backlit face. Chapter 145. Elvis didn't wait for Gu Mingming's reply and just carried the neatly dressed Gu Mingming into his arms with one hand while using the other to carry her old clothes. These were supposed to be thrown away, but she said she wanted to wash them before using them, and he agreed to it. Leah transformed into a snow fox as promised and waited for them not far away. He heard the conversation between Gu Mingming and Elvis. It was undeniable that he felt a sense of beauty in his heart. The only one, such an unattainable word, yet Gu Mingming said she wanted to give it to him? In this beast world, which male could resist such a temptation? However, Leah was very clear that he could not protect Gu Mingming by himself. When Gu Mingming's identity was exposed one day, the beast world would definitely be in chaos. By then, how could he protect her while facing the enemies? But even if it could not be realized, Leah felt that it was enough with Gu Mingming's words. "Let Leah carry me." Gu Mingming felt a little awkward. She did not know how to face Elvis now. Elvis's spine obviously stiffened, but he did not say anything and just placed Gu Mingming on Lee's back. Then he said, "You guys go to Sandy's place first. I will go back and dig a cave for Xiaoming to store her old clothes. I will go and fetch you guys later." Leah replied to Elvis using beast language, but Gu Mingming naturally did not understand. But Elvis just smiled bitterly and nodded before turning to leave. When Leah and Gu Mingming returned to Sandy's cave, Adali actually woke up miraculously. His wounds had not healed, but he looked much better. Unless it was the final radiance of a setting sun, he would definitely not die like this. Sandy saw Gu Mingming returning and immediately went up to her. She held Gu Mingming's little hand and said, "Gu Mingming, you are too magical. Look, Adali looks much better now. At this rate he will be able to recover in no time." Gu Mingming smiled embarrassedly and said, "This is Lee's credit, I just moved my mouth." But Sandy did not think so. She looked at Leah, who went to ask Bode for a piece of beast skin to wrap around his waist after putting Gu Mingming down. She lowered her voice and said, "Leah has never treated an injury like this before. This is obviously your idea. So, Adri's survival is all thanks to you." Mimicking Sandy, Gu Mingming lowered her voice and asked in a breathless voice, "Why are we speaking in such a soft voice?" Sandy gave Gu Mingming a "you're so stupid" look and said, "If Leah hears this, I'm dead meat." Gu Mingming said helplessly, "He can still hear you like this." Sandy paused and looked at Leah in fear. She bit her lower lip and could not say a word. Then she suddenly pulled Gu Mingming over and said, "Gu Mingming, tell Leah not to be angry." Gu Mingming laughed out loud. "My Leah is not so petty." Sandy and Leah were stunned. "My Leah?" These 4 words were clearly enough to quell any of Lee's anger. Moreover, since Sandy was Gu Mingming's good friend, Leah would definitely not hold it against her. Just like how no matter how Gu Mingming ordered Bode around, he would not flare up at Gu Mingming no matter how unwilling he was. Just like how Leah was inwardly coquettish, Sandy could not hold it in any longer. She raised her voice and asked in surprise, "Gu Mingming, you mean you are going to mate with Leah, right? This way you will always stay in Saint Nazaire. Even if Yu Sijin comes to look for you, you will not leave with him, right?" Aside from the topic, babies, it's hard to say about the stockpiling of chapters. Although I have been working hard, I can't release a lot of chapters every day. So, from the 5th to the 7th, I will release more chapters than the editor requested and maintain a rhythm of 5 chapters every day. Tomorrow, which is the last day of the PK, on the 8th, I will release all the chapters that I have saved up these few days. It can be considered as a small climax for me to release more chapters. As for how many chapters one can release, I am not sure. Anyway, let's all look forward to it. The last thing I want to say is, there will only be the next PK after this one. If you still want to see Gina release chapters before it is published, please try to support him in these 2 days. Chapter 146. Gu Mingming really did not want to continue the topic of Yu Sijin anymore. She glanced at Adali, who was lying at the side. His complexion seemed to have improved a lot. Gu Mingming could not help but admire the abnormal recovery ability of the males in the beast world once again. Did he just need to take a bath and he was already out of danger? But he was someone else's male after all. It would cause misunderstandings if she was too concerned about him. Moreover, Gu Mingming blushed and her eyes unknowingly looked at Leah, making eye contact with his long and charming eyes. Gu Mingming smiled and retracted her gaze, but her heart was filled with sweetness. Holding Sandy's hand, Gu Mingming replied, not leaving, I can't bear to leave my precious Sandy. Sandy hugged Gu Mingming's waist and rubbed her face against her chest. Her furry ears tickled Gu Mingming's chin and she could not stop giggling. Alright, I think you were not full just now. I brought the pot over to add more food for you. Really? Adali's condition had stabilized and Sandy's gluttonous nature was revealed once again. Gu Mingming pointed at the stone pot and said, look, I brought the ingredients to eat, how can it be fake? Sandy nodded her head hurriedly and her eyes lit up as she looked at the stone pot. Forgive Sandy for not having seen the world, but in her eyes, this pot had already been bestowed with the light of a divine weapon. Gu Mingming was very agile and did not show any mercy when commanding Bode. She handed over the tasks of gathering firewood and boiling water to Bode while she squatted at the side to deal with the fish. As they were going to roast it for Sandy, Bode had already cleaned the fish's scales and innards. What Gu Mingming needed to do now was to use a sharp small stone to cut the fish into a few large pieces. Then she smashed the ginger Leah gave her and tried to cut it open. When the water in the pot was boiling, Gu Mingming handed the entire fish bone and head to Bode and let him keep stirring while she sat at the side to chat with Sandy. What about me? What should I do? Leah came forward, seemingly unhappy that Gu Mingming had thrown him aside the moment she saw Sandy. How could Gu Mingming ignore him? That pair of big eyes had glanced at him countless times. It was just that they were too shy to be too intimate with each other because there were others around. But since Leah had taken the initiative to send himself to her doorstep, wouldn't it be too unromantic if she didn't get used to it? With that thought, Gu Mingming leaned into Lee's arms and leaned against his chest saying, of course you're accompanying me. Leah smiled faintly, his gaze gentle. All right. Leah took the initiative to summon his large tail and wrapped it around Gu Mingming. He did not seem to mind that his tail had become Gu Mingming's moving sofa. He only knew that his Mingming was in heat. The ground was so cold he definitely could not let her sit on the ground. Gu Mingming had always been fond of Lee's tail and now it was even more justifiable for her to rub it up. If she did not do it now, when would she do it? No matter how slow Sandy was, she could sense the subtle change in the atmosphere between Gu Mingming and Leah. She finally felt relieved this way. Gu Mingming would stay in Saint Nazaire forever, right? They could stay friends forever, right? Chapter 147. When Bode's fish soup was almost done, Gu Mingming then placed the sliced ginger into the pot and waited for the pot to boil before placing the fish meat in to cook. Actually, the food cooked with only ginger and fish was similar to a postpartum meal and could not be considered as a delicacy. The main reason why Gu Mingming's cooking was so popular was because the structure of the delicacies here was too monotonous and lacking. As a result, the fish soup that had been cooked for about 2 hours was so fragrant that it attracted almost everyone in Saint Nazaire. But most of the males still abided by their territorial boundaries and did not step into Sandy's territory. But some females who did not have enough of courting death did not care about that. Nina and another female whose name Gu Mingming could not remember walked in together. Nina took the lead, walking with her head held high, as if she was strolling in her own backyard, while the other female followed behind her like a servant. The two of them walked in front of Gu Mingming, one in front and one at the back. Nina had suffered a few times in Gu Mingming's hands and the wound on her neck was still hurting. She looked around and when she realized that Elvis was not around, her heart calmed down a little. Then she cleared her throat and pointed at Sandy's pot, asking, "Hey, lowly half-orc female, what are you doing?" Sandy stood up uneasily and replied while clasping her hands, "No, it's not me, it's Gu Mingming who is cooking." Gu Mingming knew that Sandy was used to being bullied by Nina, so she was quite surprised that she would go against Nina for her. Why would Gu Mingming not protect a friend who did not back down even though she was clearly afraid for her? So, she straightened her back and stood up from Lee's arms, her hand naturally hooking onto Sandy's arm. As she was not as tall as Sandy, Gu Mingming looked like a little bird beside Sandy, just that this little bird was a little domineering. Even before she opened her mouth, Nina's legs had already turned to jelly. Gu Mingming sneered in disdain and said, "Why? Are you here to apologize to Adali?" "Apologize?" Nina's sharp voice pierced Gu Mingming's eardrums. Gu Mingming dug her ears with her little finger and asked unhappily, "Why, you beat me up and you treat it as if nothing happened? You swaggered over here because you're afraid that I won't be able to find your doorstep for revenge?" Nina was afraid of being beaten up by Gu Mingming, and Elvis had used his actions today to clearly tell her. If she provoked Gu Mingming he would kill her. Because he was afraid, his aura became weaker. However, Nina had been the first beauty of Saint Nazaire for a long time and had been pampered to the point that it had become her instinct. The arrogance that was ingrained in her bones had caused her to have an unwise understanding of herself. She thought if Elvis was not around. Thus, he mustered up his courage and retorted, "Fights between males have always resulted in either death or injury. How can we blame others? He's useless and can't beat my male. Why should I apologize?" Well, as Gu Mingming said, she started rolling up her sleeves. Nina had seen this posture twice and instinctively knew that Gu Mingming was going to hit her again. He was so frightened that he took 2 big steps back, staring at Gu Mingming cautiously. Gu Mingming did not care about her. She pointed at Nina's nose and said, "Since you sent yourself to me, if I don't beat you up today, I would be letting you down." Aside from the topic, some people said that they did not like Sandy's character and that she was too weak. But putting herself in her shoes, she had been bullied since she was an adult. How could it be easy for her to retaliate after such a long time? But it was precisely this weak character that she did not give in when Nina scolded Gu Mingming. So, Sandy was just a soft and cute girl. We can't expect her to be like Gu Mingming, right? Gu Mingming, authorine, come over here and make it clear, what's the difference between you and me? Chapter 148. Gu Mingming was about to rush to Nina again but was lifted up by her waist. Gu Mingming instinctively thought that Elvis was lifting her again. She turned around and was about to complain when she saw Li's smiling handsome face. Gu Mingming said, "Leah, why are you lifting me too?" Leah, on the other hand, poked her little nose in rebuke. He watched as she moved back and forth in his hands like a cub, hugging onto his hand indignantly as if she wanted to bite him but was reluctant to use any strength. He asked, "What did you promise me again?" Gu Mingming blinked her big eyes and shook her head honestly, completely forgetting what she had said just a moment ago. Leah pointed at the stone pot that was boiling water and raised his eyebrows while looking at Gu Mingming with squinted eyes, as if he was considering how to punish this little rascal who forgot everything after she said it. Gu Mingming followed Li's hand and looked at the stone pot. After thinking for a long time, she finally remembered that she had casually promised Leah when the stone pot fell just now, something like, let him do everything in the future, treat herself as if she was severely handicapped and could not take care of herself, and so on. Blushing, she cleared her throat and swung into Li's arms, pouncing on him. Leah caught her steadily and waited for Gu Mingming to order him about female matters for the first time with his eyes full of smiles. Gu Mingming raised her head under Li's guiding and expectant gaze and pointed at Nina, saying, "Leah, help me teach her a lesson, all right?" "As you wish." Li's smile bloomed like a poppy at a speed visible to the naked eye. His voice was full of charm, like a smooth melody played by a cello. These 4 simple words made Gu Mingming's maiden heart explode more than any other situation. Her heart was like a little beast crying piteously for food, wishing that she could hold up a support sign and shout, "Leah is so handsome, his boyfriend power is at the max." Leah placed Gu Mingming beside Sandy. He felt that other than his own embrace, Sandy's side was Gu Mingming's favorite place. After settling Gu Mingming, who looked like a fangirl, Leah turned to face Nina. He was clearly smiling, but it sent a chill down Nina's spine. It was even more horrifying than when Elvis was pinching her neck. Taking 2 steps back, Nina said, Leah, what are you doing?" "I am Saint Nazaire's precious female." "Indeed, you are the precious female of Saint Nazaire." Li's voice was slow as if he was narrating, "But Ming is my female. To me she's a million times more precious than you." As he spoke, Li's fingernails grew out one by one. Gu Mingming could only see his back view, but she could clearly feel his murderous aura. Not to mention Nina, who was facing him directly. She was so scared that her legs turned to jelly and she sat on the ground. She did not even have the strength to escape and was just like a dog. This time Gu Mingming did not stop Leah. Firstly, she believed that Leah had a sense of propriety. No matter how scary he acted, he would not really take Nina's life. Secondly, Adali's injuries were too severe and he almost lost his life. If she did not teach Nina a memorable lesson, Gu Mingming felt that she would not be able to raise her head in front of Sandy in the future. After all, no matter what, he was involved in this matter. As for the third point, Gu Mingming glanced over and had long seen the restless males at the borders of Sandy's territory. The moment Leah launched his attack, they could no longer control themselves and rushed in together. They were already standing in front of Nina, blocking her way. Gu Mingming's eyes darted around. Aside from the topic, sharing a new article from a friend. Actually, it was a modern romance article covered in a layer of fantasy. Sweet pampering textbook, welcome to read it. The Domineering Little Wife of Pluto by Invisible Stars. This was the story of a useless cultivator who became a supreme queen. This was the story of Pluto's endless pampering of his domineering little wife. Regarding the female lead, Dongfang Xan, the daughter of a 10,000-year-old zombie king and a human, the second generation of the little princess who was doted on by all. She was a red-level student from the first school of the underworld. At the same time, she was the useless cultivator in his eyes, a troublemaker, the little tyrant of the underworld. Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. The useless cultivator finally became a queen. Let's see how she saves the world. Regarding the male lead, Yi Lin, the supreme king of the underworld. It was said that she could choose any of the treasures in his mansion of Pluto, and he even sent himself out as her 1-month-old present. Emerging as a dark horse, he successfully captured his little wife. Chapter 149. The appearance of Nina's partners seemed to be exactly what Leah wanted. Flexing his wrists, Leah said, "You guys trespassed into someone else's territory, which is equivalent to disregarding Saint Nazir's rules. As a witch doctor, it's hard for me to pretend that I didn't see it." Nina's partners looked at each other. There seemed to be something wrong with Lee's words, but nothing seemed wrong at the same time. Based on their brains, it was impossible for them to refute Lee's words. Moreover, it was a fact that they trespassed into someone else's territory. There was no way for them to argue. Hence, one of Nina's partners crawled under Lee's feet. This was the way wild beasts expressed obedience. They did not want to and did not dare to become enemies with Leah. "We just want to bring Nina away. We have no intention of trespassing into Sandy's territory." Leah. "Oh no, great witch doctor, please forgive us." Leah did not seem to buy Nina's partner's cowardice. He just played with his sharp claws nonchalantly, smiling faintly. "Bring Nina away? That won't do," my Meng Meng said. "She wants me to teach her a lesson." Nina's partner was shocked. He stared at Leah with widened eyes. "Nina is a female." Lee's smile deepened. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating, but it was as if it was soaked in poison, making people afraid. "Yeah, Nina is a female." Leah twisted his wrist, grabbing onto Nina's partner who was blocking in front of him. He slowly raised his arm until the male's feet could no longer touch the ground. He kept kicking in the air but had no ability to retaliate. Meanwhile, Leah maintained his God-loving smile, saying calmly, "But you guys are not." With that, Leah tossed the male who was almost dead to the side. At the same time, he transformed into a snow fox and leaped into the air. He stepped on the stomach of the male who had been tossed into the air and leaped into the air. Then he fought with Nina's partners who had already transformed into their original forms. Forgive Gu Mingming for not seeing anything clearly because it was really too fast. About 3 seconds? Gu Mingming blinked, regained her composure and walked stiffly to Lee's side. Seeing Lee's clean hands and the 7 to 8 males lying by his feet, it would be an understatement to say that she was dumbfounded. Those who had transformed into beasts were obviously unable to get up. Each of them only had one wound on their bodies. It wasn't fatal, but it was surprisingly uniform. All the wounds were on the abdomen. Regardless of the depth, the shape was exactly the same as Adri's wound. At least from Gu Mingming's point of view, it was as though the wound had been copied and pasted. It was definitely produced by an assembly line. Leah knew that Gu Mingming was afraid of blood, so he chose to transform into his beast form to fight. Firstly, it was to end the battle quickly, and secondly, after transforming, the original stains on his body would be removed along with the transformation, leaving no traces behind. So when Gu Mingming walked over, there was not a single trace of blood on him. He was still as white and flawless as jade. Holding on to Gu Mingming's little hand, Leah asked with a face full of tenderness, "Is Gu Mingming satisfied with this lesson? If you want, I can also leave the same scar on Nina's body." Gu Mingming hurriedly shook her head. Actually, her so-called lesson was just to leave him with a bloody nose and a swollen face. She had never thought of Leah being so heavy-handed. But now that things had come to this, she could not say that Leah was wrong. After all, Adri was also injured by them to this extent. "Forget it, I think they have learned their lesson and will not dare to bully Sandy in the future." Leah maintained his faint smile, but when his gaze did not meet Gu Mingming's, his smile was so cold that it was frightening. "You should be glad that you are a member of Saint Nazir, or else." Nina's partners, who could not transform back into human form, let out a low whimper in their beast form. That was their submission under the suppression of absolute power. They were very clear that if they were not a member of Saint Nazir, Lee's claw would have directly dug out their hearts, and not just scratched their abdomens. Digression. To be honest, I still haven't found the place where I PK in the book town, but when I scanned the book town's reward area, I was really shocked. I always knew that you all loved me, but I didn't expect you all to love me so much. Thank you Doryman, Hanshi Jianlu, New Day, and our Shin baby for their rewards. I'm so touched, my babies, thank you all. Also, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's Great Banyan Tree Huahua. Chapter 150. My Gu Ming doesn't like the smell of blood. Do you guys want to scram or, do you want me to do it? Before Leah could finish his sentence, a few of Nina's partners who did not dare to rush out just now tried to walk in from the boundary of Sandy's territory. They stopped after 2 steps and looked at Leah. Seeing that Leah just turned around and carried Gu Mingming back to the stove, ignoring them, they mustered up their courage to rush in and drag their injured family members away. Meanwhile, Nina, who was already scared out of her wits, could only allow one of her partners to carry her away. Her eyes were filled with shock and daze, as if she could not comprehend what had just happened. After Nina left, Sandy's territory was only left with her family, Gu Mingming, Leah and that half-orc female who had accompanied Nina over like a maidservant. Gu Mingming looked at the half-orc female and said, "Your master has already left, why aren't you leaving?" That female bit her lower lip and seemed very nervous. She hesitated for a long time before opening her mouth and asking timidly, "Can I stay behind with you guys?" Gu Mingming raised her brows and asked, "Aren't you Nina's friend? It's not suitable for you to stay with us." That female shook her head like a rattled drum and said with misty eyes, "Nina and I are not friends. It's just that she is a complete female and I am just a mere half-orc female like Sandy. If I don't listen to her, I will be bullied by her. I don't want to be bullied anymore. I beg you, let me stay by your side, can you?" Gu Mingming did not know much about the people of Saint Nazaire, so she looked at Sandy and asked for her opinion. Sandy tugged at Gu Mingming's hand and looked at her with a slightly pleading gaze. She probably felt a kinship with this half-orc female. Gu Mingming thought that it was better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Since she had taken the initiative to show her kindness, why should she reject her? Moreover, although this female had always been by Nina's side, she had not done anything to harm Sandy other than to protect herself. Since Sandy had already begged for mercy, what else could she not agree to? So Gu Mingming stretched out a hand towards the female and said, "Hello, I am Gu Mingming." That female held onto Gu Mingming's hand with both her hands, then knelt down and prostrated on the ground. This posture was exactly the same as when Nina's partner begged Leah for mercy. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She wanted to pull the female up, but realized that she could not support her weight at all. She pulled twice but the female did not budge at all. Gu Mingming asked, "What are you doing?" Get up, get up." Leah placed his hand lightly on Gu Mingming's shoulder and smiled sideways. "She is expressing her loyalty to you. You can touch her head and she will get up." The corners of Gu Mingming's lips twitched. Why was making friends like training a dog? What loyalty and disloyalty? But seeing that female sprawled on the ground and refused to get up, Gu Mingming had no choice but to pat her head, accepting her loyalty. That female looked up with a face full of tears. She looked at Gu Mingming gratefully and said, "My name is Maya. From today onwards I am yours." Gu Mingming's temples throbbed. "From today onwards I am yours." Why did this sentence sound so awkward? "Maya, the relationship between friends is equal. I am not above you so you don't have to do this." As Gu Mingming said, she leaned into Lee's arms. She looked at Lee's side profile and smiled. "Moreover, I can't let you be mine. Mine only has him." Aside from the topic, first of all I would like to thank the babies in the group who helped me to name myself. I have saved all the names you gave me and they will slowly appear in the novel. Just like Maya today, who will be the next one to give her a new name? Also, I would like to thank my babies XNU and Choice in QQ Reading. Chapter 151. Leah enjoyed Gu Mingming's words very much. For the time being, let him enjoy this one and only. Even if it could not last long, this moment would definitely be the happiest day of his life. Leah hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and looked at Maya as if he was looking at a rival in love. "What? You want to fight with me too?" Maya was shocked. She leaned back and fell on her butt. She looked at Leah in fear and said, No, Great Witch Doctor, I didn't mean it that way, that's good." Leah lifted his head proudly and walked past Maya with Gu Mingming in his arms. His steps were exceptionally coquettish. The fish bones at Bode's side had already been boiled to a milky white color. Even Gu Mingming's appetite was whetted by the smell, not to mention Sandy and Maya. Gu Mingming skipped to the side of the pot and placed the sliced ginger inside. After boiling for a while, she placed the fish inside. After cooking for about 5 minutes, Gu Mingming clapped her hands and exclaimed, "Done!" She reached out to touch the side and realized that in this miserable beast world, there were no bowls or chopsticks. She could hold a tree branch to eat when she was barbecuing, but was she supposed to hold a stone pot to drink fish soup? Gu Mingming looked around. Leah did not understand but followed her and looked around. He asked, "What are you looking for?" Gu Mingming roughly described the appearance of the bowl and chopsticks. Leah nodded thoughtfully, then kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and said, "I know where to find something similar, I'll go get it for you, wait here." Leah nodded. "Yeah." Gu Mingming nodded obediently. Blue friends were really reliable. Sandy and Maya surrounded Gu Mingming on both sides. The 3 little heads were all on top of the pot, drooling as they smelled the aroma. Just when they could not hold it in any longer, Leah finally returned. But when she saw the thing in his hands, Gu Mingming froze on the spot. Leah was holding half a tiger's skull in his left hand. He placed it upside down and sliced it flat from the eye level. Water was still dripping from the 2 furry ears. It was obvious that the considerate Leah had washed it seriously after removing it. But a tiger's head dripping with water was also very scary, alright? And on his right hand, what were those 2 things that looked like tiger ribs? Gu Mingming instinctively took a step back and almost knocked into the stone pot behind her. Leah dashed forward and scooped Gu Mingming's waist with the hand that was holding the tiger bone. She fell into Lee's arms. "You promised not to let me worry," Leah said sternly. Gu Mingming was so speechless that her teeth were chattering. She stuttered, put down the things in your hands first, we can talk about it." Leah did not understand but did as he was told. Gu Mingming looked at the half a tiger's skull and ribs that Leah had placed at the side. She pulled Leah a few steps to the side before saying, "Don't tell me you want me to eat with that thing?" Leah looked at Dehu's head and then nodded sincerely. Gu Mingming stumbled and fell into Lee's arms. She twisted her body and muttered, "Can you not be so curious? That's too scary, I don't dare to use it." Leah suddenly smiled and stroked Gu Mingming's little head that was rubbing against his chest. He comforted her, "It's just food, don't be afraid." Gu Mingming wanted to cry but had no tears. She roared in her heart, "Can you not say such scary words with that expression of God loving the world?" Aside from the topic, regarding the matter between Gu Mingming and Leah, don't worry too much. Lee's status as the official CP would not be shaken. Leah and Gu Mingming were at most ambiguous. It was impossible for them to become partners. Leah had more scenes at the moment because Gu Mingming liked him now. Wait till, I can't say it. Just continue watching. You will know when I hide and pretend to be Mr. Automatic Update. Chapter 152. Leah could tell that Gu Mingming was really scared, so he hugged her and said, "If you don't like it, then we won't use this. Let me think if there are other similar things." Gu Mingming immediately shook her head. She did not dare to count on Leah to think of a solution, or else who knows what head he would bring over later. Gu Mingming looked around and suddenly had an idea. She pointed at the tree branches that Bode had brought back to make firewood and said, we will use this." Leah followed Gu Mingming's little hand and looked at the tree branches that were no thicker than Gu Mingming's arm with a confused face and asked, "This?" Gu Mingming nodded her head heavily and said, yes, this." Gu Mingming ran over as she said and gestured for Leah to help her cut out a branch that was about 10 centimeters thick. Then she dug out the wood core and turned it into a very retro and simple wooden bowl. But the modern wooden bowls were all oiled and this simple one would definitely be permeable and there would be wood shavings if used directly. So, Gu Mingming directly plucked 2 large leaves from the tree and placed them on the bottom of the bowl. Then she used another bowl to fill the bowl with fish meat and soup. Gu Mingming was used to taking care of others and just as she was about to pass the fish soup to Sandy, she was carried away from the pot by Leah and found an empty place to sit down. Leah was still in his half-orc form, using his large tail as a personal sofa for Gu Mingming while he sat cross-legged with one leg bent. His elbow was placed on his bent knee and he looked sideways at Gu Mingming, admiring the way she ate. Gu Mingming used 2 thin tree branches as chopsticks. Although it was not easy to use bent branches, it was still better than tiger ribs. She picked up a piece of fish meat and sent it into her mouth. The texture was dense and sweet. After eating a few roasted meat, this fish meat soup was like a refreshing stream. Gu Mingming used her chopsticks to pick up another piece and sent it to Li's mouth, saying, "Try it, the taste is not bad." Leah placed the tip of his nose in front of the fish meat and smelled it. Then, his lips curled up in his mouth that looked like he was going to eat the fish meat, brushing past Gu Mingming's chopsticks and kissed her lips. This kiss was very light, but it messed up the rhythm of Gu Mingming's heartbeat. Everyone was watching. But Leah did not care about how others looked at him. He just looked at Gu Mingming's mouth tenderly and licked his lips. Indeed, very delicious. Gu Mingming pursed her lips and smiled faintly. She lowered her head and sent the fish on her chopsticks into her mouth. She did not dare to look at Li's eyes and could only eat the food in her bowl secretly. She didn't even know when the food in the bowl was gone, because her ears were filled with the sound of her own heartbeat. Leah took over the empty bowl and asked, "Do you want more?" "I'll help you get a bowl." Gu Mingming shook her head shyly and said, "No need, I'm full." Leah frowned, his heart aching that his Mingming only ate so little every meal. The food that he had spent so much effort to cook ended up in Sandy and Maya's stomachs. After thinking for a while, Leah whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, "But I'm still hungry." Gu Mingming then realized that she had actually finished everything and left nothing for Leah. She hurriedly said, "Then I'll help you get another bowl." Leah pulled Gu Mingming's little hand and said, "I'm the witch doctor of Saint Nazir, how can I snatch food from a female?" Aside from the topic, babes, remember to give me that free ticket. Those who have gifts, please focus on today. Today is the last day for the statistics. After today, gifts won't be counted as results. Then leave a message and ask the babies to move their fingers and cheer for Jean Eyre and Gu Mingming, please. Chapter 153. Gu Mingming looked at Sandy and Maya, who were about to fight over those few pieces of fish, and said hesitantly, "Then, go get a bowl for yourself and share some with me, all right?" Leah said. Gu Mingming nodded. As a competent girlfriend, she would definitely not let her boyfriend go hungry. So Gu Mingming jumped out from Li's tail with the bowl in hand and rushed to the pot, snatching a bowl of fish from Sandy and Maya's pincer attack. The steam from the fish shrouded Gu Mingming's little face. From Li's perspective, she seemed to be the only color in this world. Opening his arms, Leah took the initiative to welcome Gu Mingming, who was walking towards him. He kept his tail and hugged her with his body, feeling the wonderful feeling of her in his arms. Gu Mingming seemed to have gotten used to being hugged these few days, so she did not resist or feel awkward. She just picked up a piece of fish and blew on it before sending it to Li's lips. She opened her mouth as if she was feeding a child and said, "Come, open your mouth." Ah. Leah could not help but smile, but used one hand to push the chopsticks back into Gu Mingming's mouth. As Gu Mingming looked at him with her big innocent eyes, he leaned towards her lips again and kissed her little mouth. His nimble tongue minced the fish in Gu Mingming's mouth before releasing her little mouth reluctantly. Before he withdrew, he sucked on her little lilac tongue again. Some saliva dripped down from their parted lips, reflecting the sunlight and looking crystal clear. Gu Mingming's face flushed red. She finally understood what Leah meant by, "Share some with me." So, there was such a way to divide. Gu Mingming instinctively swallowed the fish in her mouth but did not dare to feed Leah a second time. She directly placed the chopsticks in front of Leah and looked away shyly, saying, You eat it yourself." Leah loved Gu Mingming's shy look very much, especially her little mouth, which always gave off a seductive scent, making him want to taste it again and again. Using his slender and bony fingers to hook Gu Mingming's little chin, Leah said with a pure and innocent face, "I don't know how to use these two tree branches." Gu Mingming stuffed the bowl into Li's hands and ran away as if she was escaping for her life. As she ran, she shouted, "If you don't know how to use chopsticks, use your hands." Looking at Gu Mingming's escaping back view, Li's heart sank. Could it be that he had still pushed her too hard? Although she said she ran away, she didn't go far. She just ran to Sandy and Maya's side. These two little females, who usually did not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Nina, were now at loggerheads with each other over a pot of fish, refusing to give in to each other. Gu Mingming walked to the middle and forcibly separated the two of them, saying, "There are plenty of these fish in the stream. If it's not enough, we can just catch another two to cut them up and put everything into the soup. The soup is ready-made and it doesn't take much effort to make. What's there to fight over?" Maya's understanding of Gu Mingming was that Gu Mingming was the one who beat Nina up, and she had always been the one being stepped on by Nina. So towards Gu Mingming she desired and feared her. Now that Gu Mingming had spoken, she naturally did not dare to fight over it. Moreover, they were eating the ingredients found by Sandy's partner. Even if she was a female, she would not dare to snatch the food away from Sandy's partner. So Maya obediently took a step back, then looked at Sandy seriously and asked, "Sandy, can I let Nissan in? I want him to help me catch a few more water shuttles so we can eat together." Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming, "Leah, you have your own hands and feet, why do you want to snatch the food in my mouth?" "Leah, I was kissing you. You said before, lovers is a relationship where I can kiss you if I want to." "Gu Mingming, you even said you are the witch doctor of Saint Nazir and cannot snatch food from females." "Leah, you are not a female from Saint Nazir, you are my female." Gu Mingming blushed, turned around and ran away. Chapter 154. Sandy nodded her head in agreement. Maya then waved her hand and a wolf leaped in. Gu Mingming still instinctively took a step back, even though this wolf was obviously half the size of Elvis and its color was just a normal gray. After seeing Elvis's original form, this gray wolf looked like the huskies in the neighborhood. But even so, the natural fear humans had towards beasts still made Gu Mingming's heart skip a beat. Leah did not miss Gu Mingming's frightened expression, so when Nissan passed by him, he accidentally kicked him back to his original position. Leah stretched his back and stood up, calling out to Bode, "The females don't have enough food, follow me to help them catch some food." Bode suddenly felt the glory of a leopard's life. He was actually not ordered around by Gu Mingming. He was so happy he did not know why, but he just felt like he could straighten his back. Bode followed behind Leah all the way to the stream. When he passed by Nissan, Leah only gave him a look and Nissan followed behind Leah without any hesitation. Lee's lips moved slightly, but Gu Mingming naturally did not know what he was saying as they were too far apart. But the other males present heard it clearly. Lee's instruction with a devilish smile was, "No one is allowed to show their original form in front of Gu Mingming again." Gu Mingming took advantage of the free time and asked Sandy to order her partners to learn from Leah to make bowls and chopsticks of all sizes using wood. She chose a piece of wood that was as thick as Gu Mingming's waist, dug out the middle and made 2 small holes in symmetrical areas. Then she tied some vines to it and it became the simplest water bucket. Luckily, the males in the beast world had strong hands-on skills. Although it was not as beautiful as Lee's, it at least had the basic functions. It did not look good, but it was fine as long as it could be used. When Sandy's partners returned with the new tools, Gu Mingming used a bigger bowl to add some water into the pot. Then she used the long chopsticks to stir while humming a tune, waiting for Leah and the rest to return in satisfaction. Sandy, on the other hand, forgot to look at the pot as she stared at Gu Mingming with eyes brimming with love. "Gu Mingming, you're really amazing. You know how to make so many strange but useful things and you can even sing." Gu Mingming grinned. She looked at the cutlery on the floor that could only be destroyed as a defective product in the modern world. She really did not dare to accept Sandy's compliment. However, she was not going to pass on the responsibility of singing. Clearing her throat, Gu Mingming smiled at Sandy. "You like listening to songs?" Sandy nodded as if she was pounding garlic. She clasped her hands in front of her chest and instantly turned into a fangirl. Legend had it that only the mermaid tribe in the deep sea and some migrating birds knew how to sing. But Saint Nazir was far away from the ocean and none of the birds that knew how to sing would pass by here when migrating. So to Sandy or even the entire Saint Nazir, singing was a luxury. Gu Mingming did not know this. She was just purely pleased by Sandy's expectant gaze. Hence she hummed twice to set the tone. She then stirred the fish soup in the pot while singing. Other than being in love, we're also fortunate to have the happiness of chatting with a good friend. "You're my dowry, my most precious collection. I won't marry a man who doesn't nod his head. I'm your dowry, please keep me by your side. Don't marry a man who thinks I'm too noisy." Sandy and Maya were already in a daze. They only looked at Gu Mingming with adoration and did not notice that Leah, Bode and Nissan had already returned with the fish soup. Only when Gu Mingming finished singing the last note and was hugged by Leah did the two of them regain their senses. They exclaimed in surprise, "Gu Mingming, you sang so beautifully. It's the most beautiful voice in the world." Aside from the topic, the song that Gu Mingming was singing was called Dowry. It was sung by Guijing and it was rather nice. Then I would like to thank my precious prodigal son Forever Alone, and our precious Xian from QQ Reading. With your support, this novel could achieve such results today. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for voting and leaving comments for me these few days. Thank you, thank you. Chapter 155. Gu Mingming did not reply to Sandy. Please forgive her, she was a person who prioritized love over friendship. a person who only cared about the opposite sex. Moreover, she and Leah were already in the honeymoon phase, so she could only see Leah. She believed that Sandy would understand. "You're back, it's been hard on you." Gu Mingming held Lee's neck and kissed him on the cheek. Lee's expression softened, but he still could not hide his disappointment. "You sang really well, it's a pity. I couldn't listen to the whole thing." Gu Mingming smiled with her eyes squinted. "It's nothing, isn't it, just singing? If you want to listen, I can sing for you every day." Leah raised his brows and smiled. He kissed Gu Mingming's cheek. "I'm looking forward to it." Gu Mingming saw that Leah clearly wanted to listen to her singing now, so she did not reject him. She nestled in Lee's arms and sang Tian Fujian's Little Luck. After she finished singing, she looked up at Leah and smiled sweetly. Leah hooked Gu Mingming's chin with his fingers and covered her lips with his. After kissing for a long time, he called out in a slightly hoarse voice. "Gu Mingming, Gu Mingming, Gu Mingming." Gu Mingming looked at Leah in a daze. Since when did Leah stop calling her by her full name? Suddenly calling her like this made Gu Mingming feel uncomfortable. And this feeling of unfamiliarity pounded against her heart, messing up the rhythm of her heartbeat. "I'm calling your name very seriously." Leah kissed Gu Mingming's forehead again. Then he whispered in her ear, "Because I know that meeting you is the luckiest thing that has happened to me in my entire life." Gu Mingming felt a sweetness in her heart. She could not help but laugh. She hugged Leah back and patted his back gently. "It's just lyrics, don't take it too seriously. Many lyricists are just forcing themselves to write new lyrics. They don't have any real content." Leah did not say much. He just kissed Gu Mingming's lips again. "I'll go cook some fish for you guys." Gu Mingming was a little surprised. Leah had always only cared about her. Why was he suddenly so friendly to Sandy and Maya? When she turned back, she saw Bode's face was flushed with grievance. He took the initiative to take the bowl that Gu Mingming used just now and helped her to fold the new clean leaves. He passed it to her and said, "I don't find you troublesome anymore. You're good, you're good." Gu Mingming was at a loss. Did they all take the wrong medicine just to catch some fish? Sandy was very considerate. She walked over and said, "They must have heard the song you sang for me and Maya. Gu Mingming, you're so nice. You must be singing this so that Leah won't dare to bully us in the future, right?" Gu Mingming really wanted to say that it was just a misunderstanding, but since it was already like this, Gu Mingming decided not to explain further. After all, Yu Xijin's story was a lesson to be learned. Leah improved on Gu Mingming's foundation and the taste of the fish meat was even more delicious. Gu Mingming, who was already full, also ate another bowl of fish. Only then did Leah carry Bode's washed stone pot and carry Gu Mingming back in satisfaction. Gu Mingming was still carrying a big bowl in her arms. She had snatched it back for Elvis when the fish Leah cooked was just out of the pot. Under the setting sun, Lee's silver hair was dyed with a faint afterglow. It appeared to be a mysterious color between pink and purple. The gentle breeze blew some strands of hair away. From Gu Mingming's angle, the words "otherworldly" were clearly written on the side of Lee's face. As she stared at him, she fell into a deep sleep. Lee's embrace was really reassuring. Aside from the topic. Chapter 156. The next morning when Gu Mingming woke up, she could only see darkness in front of her. She was drenched in sweat and when she stretched out her hands, she realized that she was surrounded by soft and furry sensations. Sensing Gu Mingming's movement, the constant temperature living furry 360-degree bed automatically separated into two sides, black on the left and white on the right. Gu Mingming sat up and stretched, then turned around to look at the two huge creatures lying beside her. She could not help but exclaim, "F***!**!**!" With that, she pounced back to her original position and rolled left and right. Who could understand the feeling of hugging a husky on one's left and a Samoyed on the other, both with extremely eye-catching body shapes? Gu Mingming just wanted to laugh out loud. Who else but me? Leah and Elvis did not transform into their human forms, but maintained their original forms to look at this little female who was behaving atrociously on them. In the past, anyone who saw their original forms would run away and avoid them. Only she seemed to love their original forms. And after yesterday's incident, Leah clearly knew that Gu Mingming did not have a special fetish for male original forms, because when Nissan appeared in his original form in front of her, her reaction was obviously fear. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's unbridled look and felt warmth in his heart. The corners of his lips curled upwards, revealing a smile. But, damn it, he was in his original form now. His smile directly scared Gu Mingming. Seeing Gu Mingming's face suddenly turning green, Elvis and Leah instantly transformed into their human forms and supported her with concern. What's wrong? Why is your face suddenly so ugly? Are you feeling unwell anywhere? Gu Mingming's face once again turned red at an unimaginable speed. Damn it. Both of you are not wearing any damn clothes. Gu Mingming already felt that her nasal cavity had received a serious blow, and 2 warm currents flowed down her nose. Gu Mingming turned around immediately and stammered, Beast skin dress. Wear it properly. Elvis and Leah looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Elvis turned around and went into the depths of the cave to retrieve the beast skin dress, while Leah walked behind Gu Mingming seductively, swaying his hips and swaying his hips. He hugged her from behind and bent down slightly to accommodate her height. His lips were less than a millimeter away from Gu Mingming's earlobe. He huffed and said, You're the only one here, why are you wearing that? Gu Mingming's heart was beating like a drum and she felt like steam was coming out of her face. He gulped and said, I can't take it. I'll have a nosebleed. Lee's slender and fair fingers brushed past the area below Gu Mingming's nose. His fingers were indeed stained with a bewitching shade of red. He licked it with the tip of his tongue and swallowed that fishy sweetness. Leah said meaningfully, Can I help you clean it up? Gu Mingming did not forget how Leah cleaned her nosebleed in the stream. Once was enough, her little heart could not take a second round. So she hurriedly waved her hands and said, No need, no need. Quickly wear the beast skin dress and my nosebleed will stop. Leah chuckled and lifted Gu Mingming's chin to raise her head to prevent her nosebleed from worsening. But when Gu Mingming raised her head, she met Lee's eyes, who was standing behind her and looking down at her. Leah, who was topless, had the lazy look of someone who had just woken up in the morning and an ambiguous smile that belonged exclusively to Gu Mingming. He kissed her forehead lightly and said, Good morning, my Gu Mingming. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darlings seeing deer in Han Shi, and loving rainy days who tipped me in QQ bookstore. Thank you to all the little darlings who helped me leave messages and update various statistics during the PK period. When I know the results of this PK, I will inform everyone immediately. Regardless of success or failure, the process of us working hard together is extremely precious to me. Chapter 157. With Elvis's hearing, he naturally heard everything that happened outside. But other than acting as if nothing had happened, he had no other choice. Being able to see her the moment he woke up in the morning was already enough for him. Holding on to the 2 beast skin skirts, Elvis wrapped one around his waist and threw the other one to Leah. Nina's male was almost killed by you. If you don't go and take a look, he might not be able to survive. Leah shook his head. Leah took over the beast skin dress reluctantly but did not wear it. Instead, he wiped Gu Mingming's nose to clean her little face. Then, he did not care about the nosebleed staining his beast skin dress, making him look like he was on his period. Mingming doesn't like Nina. Leah said as he tied the beast skin dress, I don't like what Mingming doesn't like either. Elvis remained silent and sighed, I don't like her either. Suddenly, the 3 of them looked at each other and laughed. Gu Mingming obediently helped Leah tie the beast skin dress and tried her best to ignore the blood stain that seemed to be caused by her period. She patted Leah lightly with her little hands and gestured for him to sit down. Leah obeyed. Gu Mingming tore a strip of beast skin from the side and bit it in her mouth. Then she used her hands to gather Lee's silver hair and tied a strand of hair from each side of his ears together. Then she twisted it inwards and a simple hairstyle was formed. Gu Mingming walked to Leah to take a look and nodded in satisfaction, saying, I was thinking yesterday that this hairstyle would definitely suit you. It's not too deliberate and it can still display your outstanding beauty. You're so handsome. Leah had never cared much about his hair, but after Gu Mingming's praise, Leah felt that his hair was really not bad. With a smile, Leah tapped Gu Mingming's little nose and said, I know you're the softest, you don't have to flatter me like this. I'll go and treat Nina's partner. After all, he's from Saint Nazir and as a witch doctor, I won't leave him to die. Gu Mingming also felt that her flattery was a little exaggerated, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. She could praise her own boyfriend however she wanted, right? Who could control the subjective thoughts of a young girl in love? Leah stood up and held Gu Mingming's little hand reluctantly, saying, I know you don't like Nina, so I won't bring you along. I'll ask Elvis to pluck some fruits for you later to fill your stomach. I'll bring you a water shuttle when I return, alright? Gu Mingming thought about Elvis's shocking culinary skills and nodded her head in understanding. All right. Leah held Gu Mingming's little hand and kissed it before turning and leaving. Only Elvis and Gu Mengmeng were left in the cave and the atmosphere became awkward. Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and said, I'm going to the stream to wash up, do you want to come along? Gu Vis nodded and carried her and walked towards the river. Up. When she reached the stream, Gu Mingming realized that she was wearing a different set of clothes from the one she had worn last night. She tilted her head and asked, "These clothes, Alice?" That. The second half of Gu Mingming's sentence was stuck in her throat and turned into an O. After answering, Gu Mingming did not dare to look back at Elvis. She just squatted down beside the river and splashed some cold water on her face. There was a strange uneasiness in her heart, but she could not pinpoint what it was. There was a voice in her heart that kept praying for Elvis to not open his mouth. But it was obvious that Gu Mingming did not burn enough incense usually, so the deities did not have the intention to protect her. "Have you considered the matter we talked about the last time?" Elvis finally opened his mouth. The previous question he asked was just 3 words. "What about me?" Aside from the topic, this is the last update for today. We'll resume our normal updates tomorrow and wait for the editor to inform me of the PK results. If we pass this round of PK successfully, there will be a 2P session and a new round of explosive updates. During this period of waiting, we'll resume our normal schedule of 2 updates a day. Chapter 158. Gu Mingming froze while she was washing her face. She pursed her lips and stared into the water for a while before finally deciding to face it. Shaking off the water droplets on her hands, Gu Mingming stood up and faced Elvis. She frowned unknowingly. She did not know why, but she just felt guilty towards him. But it was useless to avoid what she had to face, wasn't it? Moreover, she had nowhere to run. "Elvis, I know you treat me very well, but I really can't accept you." Gu Mingming slowly approached Elvis and stopped 3 steps away from him. She raised her head and said seriously, "I know this is Saint Nazir and the rules of the world that I was originally in do not apply here. I am willing to try to follow the customs here, but things like polygamy, I really can't do it." Elvis stood at the same spot like an iron statue. He looked at Gu Mingming for a long time before asking, "Why not me?" Gu Mingming was silent for a while. Yeah, why not Elvis? He was the first person she met. When they first met, she thought he was a dream. So unattainable, so dreamy and illusory. She hugged him and molested him, even saying, "I will not take responsibility," as a proverb. It was just a joke at that time, but now it seemed like it was destined. Elvis was strong and he treated her extremely well. But unfortunately, his heart was biased towards that flirtatious snow fox. Many things could not be explained just like that. Gu Mingming sighed helplessly and said, "How can there be a why in matters of the heart? Can you explain clearly why you like me?" Elvis looked at Gu Mingming in silence for a long time. Gu Mingming smiled faintly and said, "Is it because I am prettier than the other females here? But no matter how good my looks are, I will still grow old. Is it because I know more than the other females? But the things I know, even if I don't mate with you, I will impart them to the people of Saint Nazir. Sooner or later, everyone will learn what I know. Then will I still be special?" Elvis was not Leah, he was not as eloquent as Leah. But he knew that what Gu Mingming said was wrong. Even if she grew old one day and became ordinary, he had absolute confidence that he would still love her, or even love her even more. Gu Mingming wanted to say something more, but Elvis took 2 steps forward and pulled her into his arms. His voice was low and hoarse, with a tinge of loneliness and begging, "I won't fight with Leah for the position of the first partner, I just want to stay by your side." Gu Mingming pushed Elvis, but he did not budge at all. She wanted to say something, but Elvis did not give her a chance. "Your identity is special, Leah alone cannot protect you. Not just me, you need more and stronger partners. Leah knows this too." Before Elvis could finish his sentence, Gu Mingming said, "I'm different from the females here. I'm not someone who can only wait for others to protect me." Elvis was taken aback and felt a little desolate. Yes, she was the messenger of the beast deity and was different from the other females who could only wait for males to protect them. Gu Mingming took the opportunity when Elvis was in a daze and pulled herself out from his arms. She took 2 steps back and said, "When Leah returns later, I will move into his cave. I have troubled you during this period of time, thank you for taking care of me." Aside from the topic, thank you to my QQ reading darling, Dream, Little Rabbit, Jade Treasure, Dream Wanderer's Dream, Low Voice, Hua Feihua's Style as a reward. And thank you to Xiaoxiang's darling Big Banyan Tree for her recommendation vote. Thank you, and to Xiaoxiang's darling Yu Xiao of the 4 Young Masters. QQE 381DC0DB2 for her gift of flowers. Thank you to everyone for your company and support along the way. I still do not know the results of the PK at the book town. I will share it with everyone once I receive the news. Chapter 159. Elvis's spine stiffened and his blood seemed to have frozen in that instant. He could not breathe for a long time and could only stare at Gu Mingming fixedly. That pair of eyes that were as clear as a deer's were filled with determination and determination. Elvis knew that this expression was not just a female's willful and angry words. She was really going to leave his life. The left side of her chest stopped for a long time before a deafening sound rang in Elvis's ears. His eyes were bloodshot and his vision blurred. Turning around resolutely, Elvis only said one sentence. "You don't have to leave." Then he left with big strides. Looking at Elvis's back, Gu Mingming felt like she was about to be swallowed by guilt. Rejecting someone was really a stressful thing. Gu Mingming only hoped that she would not have to do it a second time in this lifetime. She swore that she would never be envious of the school bell being confessed to 8 times a day and that rejecting someone was as easy as chewing potato chips. What did Elvis mean when he said she didn't have to leave? Was he going to let her stay in the cave? That was not good. Rejecting someone and still asking them to leave without a penny? How shameless was that? Gu Mingming felt that she could not do such a thing, so she decided to pack her things first and move to Li's place when he returned. Returning to the cave, Gu Mingming looked down at her aching feet. She finally understood why Leah and Elvis always carried her every time she left the house and almost never let her walk on her own. Their thoughtfulness was because she was too slow and only realized it now. Looking around, Gu Mingming's vision was limited and she could only see less than 10 square meters around the entrance of the cave. Any further in and it was pitch black. If Gu Mingming went in, she would be blind with her eyes wide open. However, when he thought about it, he had transmigrated here while swimming. The only thing that belonged to him was probably the bikini that he had bought from the salesperson to coincidentally meet a senior from the swimming club. So there was really nothing much to pack. Gu Mingming wore the bikini and then put on the clothes that Elvis made for her. Yeah, there was a protective cover all over and it was indeed much safer than being in a vacuum. Gu Mingming patted her hands in boredom and paced back and forth at the entrance of the cave, waiting for Leah to return. She prayed silently in her heart, hoping that Leah would return earlier than Elvis so that it would not be too awkward. But after waiting for a long time, the sun had already set and Leah was still not back. Furthermore, Elvis did not return. The cave in the night was still very frightening. It was all because of this damn territorial awareness. As the leader of St. Nazir, Elvis lived in the largest territory. Not to mention neighbors, there was not even a bug in the surroundings. At this moment, the only thing that could accompany Gu Mingming was her blurry shadow that was illuminated by the silver moonlight. Other than the sound of the wind, she could only hear her own heartbeat. The longer she waited, the more flustered she got. Elvis and Leah had never left her alone like this before. Could it be that Leah had gone to heal Nina's partner but Nina did not appreciate his kindness and allowed her other partners to attack Leah instead? Thinking about this, Gu Mingming's mind was already filled with the image of Leah lying in a pool of blood, barely breathing. Standing up abruptly, Gu Mingming did not care about the pain in her leg and ran toward Sandy's house. She did not know where Nina's house was located, so she could only ask Sandy for help. After running for a short distance, she saw a pair of green eyes staring at her in the dark. She staggered and fell to the ground. She took a few steps back in fear, only to realize that her legs and hands were jelly. In the face of such danger, she did not even have the ability to escape. She could only watch as the pair of green eyes slowly approached her, step by step. Aside from the topic, that, "Babies, let's make a deal, we won't send razor blades." Chapter 160. When the owner of the eyes completely appeared in front of Gu Mingming from the night sky, she was instead relieved. "Elvis? Why did you only come back now?" Gu Mingming tried to stand up but realized that her legs were too weak to stand up. She just sat cross-legged on the ground with her hands hanging weakly on the outside of her knees. She looked up at the black wolf in front of her and said, "Did you see Leah? He still hasn't returned, I'm a little worried." Elvis did not transform into his human form and just used his head to nudge Gu Mingming, signaling her to return to the cave. Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked Elvis, "What's wrong? Did something happen? Why don't you transform back into your human form?" Elvis nudged Gu Mingming a few more times but she stubbornly refused to go back. Elvis had no choice but to throw her onto his back and carry her back to the cave. Even though they were only a few steps apart, Gu Mingming could clearly feel Elvis's abnormality. Even though he tried his best to hide it, Gu Mingming still discovered that his hind leg seemed to be injured. Gu Mingming did not struggle along the way as she was afraid of worsening Elvis's injuries. Only until Elvis sent her into the cave and turned to leave did Gu Mingming open her arms and block Elvis's path. "What happened to your leg? You're injured, right?" Elvis instinctively moved his leg back and a low whimper came from his throat. Gu Mingming did not understand beast language and could only reply anxiously, "Leah went to treat Nina's partner and hasn't returned for a day. Why don't you rest in the cave first and I'll find Leah to treat your injury?" Gu Mingming said and turned to run out. But Elvis did not care about his injury as he bit the back of Gu Mingming's dress and brought her back into his arms. With his front paws he pulled Gu Mingming into his arms. Gu Mingming did not feel as much pressure when facing Elvis in his beast form. Moreover, his hind leg was clearly injured and if she struggled, it would definitely cause a second injury. Hence, Gu Mingming did not dare to move recklessly and could only allow Elvis to protect her under his abdomen. He rubbed his chin against the top of her head gently and finally placed her head on his neck. His chin, the softest part of his lower jaw, gently pressed against the top of her head. He hugged her just like that and did not sleep for the whole night. Gu Mingming did not know when she fell asleep, but when she woke up again, Elvis had already disappeared. There were some washed fruits placed at the entrance of the cave, which must have been left there by Elvis. Gu Mingming looked around but did not find any traces of Li's return. A huge sense of uneasiness and suspicion spread in Gu Mingming's heart. She could not be bothered to eat those fruits, nor could she be bothered with how painful her feet were. She just relied on her memory to walk out of Elvis's territory and headed straight for Sandy's place. Before Gu Mingming reached Sandy's house, Sandy had already come out of the cave to welcome her. Her eyes were bloodshot and red. It was obvious that she had been crying. "You?" Gu Mingming could not make a request in Sandy's current state, so she asked with concern, "What happened? Did Nina bully you again?" Sandy shook her head. The tears that she had finally stopped started to fall again. She held onto Gu Mingming's little hand and stared fixedly at her with her tear-filled eyes. Biting her lower lip, she could not say a single word. Finally, she pulled Gu Mingming into her arms and hugged her tightly. Then, she burst into heart-throbbing sobs until she could not breathe. Gu Mingming patted Sandy's back lightly. She did not know what had happened, but she felt as if there was a dark cloud floating above her head, making it hard for her to breathe. Aside from the topic, recommending her good friend Hua Zhixing Bao's article Young Master Gu's Flash Marriage Sweet Wife, a sweet article about love after a flash marriage. The rich and handsome Gu Senqing got married in a low-profile flash marriage. The couple in the flash marriage was the daughter of the unknown Yu Jiaojiao. Everyone said that Yu Jiaojiao received this honor because she saved the Milky Way galaxy, but they did not know that their fates were already intertwined 2 years ago. Gu Senqing from Jin City was handsome and rich. More importantly, he had no scandals and was rumored to not be close to women. He had been cold for 27 years and fell head first into Yu Jiaojiao, the little vixen. After the marriage, Gu Senqing's peaceful life was in turmoil. President Gu, Madam broke the old master's favorite vase. The man did not even lift his head, just find a similar one and send it over. President Gu, Madam released old Madam's favorite parrot. Go to South America to find a new one for her. President Gu, Madam went on a date with old Madam's sugar baby. Chapter 161. Sandy cried for a long time while Gu Mingming let her hug her blankly until she finally stopped crying. She sobbed and said, "Gu Mingming, don't be too sad. Although Leah, you still have Elvis. Hurry up and mate with Elvis, don't let Nina." Sob sob. Sandy stuttered her words but Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. She held onto Sandy's shoulder and asked with furrowed brows and squinted eyes, "Say, what happened to Leah?" Sandy looked at Gu Mingming with her swollen eyes and asked timidly, "You, still don't know?" Gu Mingming asked, "What should I know?" Sandy cried even louder. Gu Mingming had never been so frustrated before. She was absolutely sure that Sandy was not crying because she was bullied, but because of her and it had something to do with Leah. "Don't cry, tell me what happened first. Where is Leah?" Gu Mingming held onto Sandy's shoulder tightly and forced her to calm down. Sandy cried until her nose was covered in tears and snot. She said in a sobbing tone, "Leah is going to mate with Nina." "What?" Gu Mingming staggered 2 steps back before shaking her head and forcing a smile. "Impossible, this is impossible. Leah was still fine with me yesterday and he is going to mate with Nina today. How is this possible? It's true, the entire tribe knows about it. Gu Mingming had long let go of Sandy's shoulder, but she was still standing at the same spot, crying loudly with Gu Mingming's support. Gu Mingming's head was buzzing and she could not think straight. She could not figure out why Leah would do this. Gu Mingming held onto Nina's arm and resisted the tears in her eyes. Bring me to Nina's house. What do you want to do? Sandy held onto Gu Mingming's hand and said, Elvis is not by your side now, it's too dangerous for you to go there alone. What if? Gu Mingming chuckled and said, what if? Would Leah still do anything to me? Sandy pursed her lips and did not reply, but from her expression, one could tell that this was what she was worried about. Gu Mingming did not care so much and pulled Sandy out. Although Bode did not like Gu Mingming ordering him around all the time, he had received many favors from Gu Mingming. Now that Gu Mingming had dragged Sandy along, he could not just stand by and watch. So Bode carried Sandy on his back and carried Gu Mingming in his arms with the other hand. With a dark face he said, I will send you over. Gu Mingming could not divert her attention to thank him. She just wanted to find Leah quickly and bring him back. Bode's speed was very fast and he arrived at the outskirts of Nina's territory in no time. He placed Sandy and Gu Mingming down and said, I can only send you up to here. If anything happens, just shout out loud and I will go in and save you. Gu Mingming was not in the mood to listen to Bode's instructions, so she ran towards Nina's cave barefooted. Before he reached the door, he saw Nina strutting out of the cave with Leah beside her. Gu Mingming ignored Nina and looked straight at Leah. She tried her best to smile and said, Leah, you did not return home for a day. I was very worried about you. Leah, I am here to fetch you. Let's go home. Leah stood at his original spot and maintained his elegant yet distant smile. He looked at Gu Mingming and replied, I think I can't go with you anymore. Aside from the topic, thank you to QQ Readings Girls Future and Last Sight for their tips. Then, because I am going to start my Leah plot, I will be lurking in the QQ group and pretending to be dead for the next few days because I am afraid of being beaten up. I will only appear when I give out meat to everyone a few days later. Chapter 162. Why? Gu Mingming's smile froze on her face. Leah clearly did not reply, but her tears fell down uncontrollably. Gu Mingming ignored the sourness in her eyes and did not want to analyze the reason why her heart felt so suffocated. She just wanted to call Leah back with the brightest smile. But Leah stood at the same spot and did not move an inch. He was still smiling gently and replied, Gu Mingming, it's almost winter. Gu Mingming did not understand what Leah meant and could only wipe away the tears in her eyes quickly. She looked at Leah attentively and waited for him to continue. Lee's gaze passed through Gu Mingming and drifted to a faraway place. He continued in a disappointed tone, I've already become an adult for a long time. If I don't mate soon, I'll miss the opportunity to give birth to the strongest cubs. Gu Mingming's mind exploded and her heart was in turmoil. A thought kept surfacing in her mind. Leah left her because she was unwilling to mate. That's right from the start she only intended to date Leah. When Leah confessed to her, she even told Leah clearly that she would not mate with him and could only date him in order to lessen her psychological burden. She could occupy Lee's good side confidently and tell herself, this is a consensual thing, but now Leah was unwilling. Gu Mingming was trembling all over, but she could not say a word. She could only clench her fists tightly and look at Leah. Her tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes like a beautiful stream. She did not know what she was hoping for, and she also knew that this looked very unpromising. But she just could not turn around suavely and could not say those words to make him stay. Leah did not give Gu Mingming too much time to organize her emotions. He continued as if Gu Mingming was someone unrelated to him. Nina promised that her mating rights will always belong to me until she gives birth to a strong cub for me. So, I have to stay by her side and help her recuperate. That's right. Nina held her head high and puffed out her chest. She had never felt so carefree before. She took a small step forward and said, so what if you became the first beauty of Saint Nazir? Dragging along two good males like Leah and Elvis but not willing to mate with them. Are you asking them to sacrifice for you for nothing? How selfish. I'm different. I can give Leah a litter or even several litters of cubs. With Lee's strength and my perfect genes, our baby will definitely be a king in the future. Gu Mingming took a quick step forward and raised her hand to hit Nina. But just as she was about to raise her hand, her wrist was grabbed tightly by someone. Nina hid behind Lee's back like a startled bird and gave Gu Mingming an embarrassed smile. She did not say much and just hugged Lee's waist tightly for protection. On the other hand, Leah held onto Gu Mingming's wrist with one hand and patted Nina's back gently with the other. His gaze met with Gu Mingming's doubtful gaze. His smile was still so elegant, like a demon or a deity, but it did not have the warmth he had when he looked at her in the past. Lee's voice was cold and calm like an ancient well, piercing to the bone. Nina is my female. No one can touch her, including you. Gu Mingming tried to retract her wrist, but Leah did not let go. She could clearly feel the sharp pain coming from her wrist. This was Lee's warning. If she dared to touch Nina again, he would break her wrist? Ha, Sandy's words really came true. Leah really did touch her. Aside from the topic, thank you to Dan Xiaoxing and Big Momo for their long reviews on QQ Reading. To be honest, I'm very touched. These days there are very few people willing to spend money to read novels. There are even fewer people willing to write long reviews for a work than to spend money to read novels. It's almost to the point of being as rare as a phoenix feather and a unicorn horn. I have to say that I'm lucky and blessed to receive 2 such heartfelt long reviews in one day. Chapter 163. What if I hit her? What do you want? Kill me? Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and raised her head stubbornly. Damn, someone snatched her boyfriend and still dared to show off to her. If she could bear with this, she, Gu Mingming, should be able to ascend to heaven and become a bodhisattva. Leah shook his head and said, I won't. Gu Mingming's eyes brightened with a tinge of anticipation. Leah continued immediately, with me around, I won't let you hit her. Gu Mingming smiled bitterly and nodded, indicating that she understood. Leah then let go of her hand and stood in between her and Nina, not giving her any chance to hurt Nina. Good, very good. Gu Mingming took a step back and used her other hand to support her numb wrist. She looked at Leah and said, since I know that you are safe and sound, I can rest assured. Even if you are not with me, I still wish you happiness. With that, Gu Mingming turned around and moved her feet with difficulty, step by step, back to where she was. Nina's words were like a thorn, piercing straight into Gu Mingming's heart. Every time her heart beat, the sharpness would penetrate deeper. Gu Mingming, you are so selfish. You can't give a promise, so what right do you have to dominate Leah? Her footsteps were heavy, as if she was dragging the entire world. Just 3 to 5 steps. Gu Mingming already felt that she had exhausted all her energy. Can't stop, can't stop. Gu Mingming kept shouting to herself in her heart. She didn't want to part with good intentions, she didn't want Leah to remember her begging for pity in a weak and pathetic state. She didn't want it. Gu Mingming bit her lower lip tightly, trying to hold back her developed tear glands. She clenched her fists tightly and hung them by her sides, not allowing herself to show the action of wiping her tears. She thought that as long as she did that, no one would know that she was crying. But she forgot how sensitive the senses of males in the beast world were. Her first tear was seen clearly by everyone present. Xiaoming. Just as Gu Mingming was about to give up, someone held her shoulders. Gu Mingming looked up but could not see what the person in front of her looked like. But, in the entire Saint Nazir, only Elvis would call her Xiaoming. Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and could not say a word. She felt that her throat was dry and tight and she could not make a sound. Elvis carried Gu Mingming in his arms, one hand supporting her butt and the other on her back. He patted her gently and let her lean on his shoulder. Elvis's voice was a little hoarse. Even though he tried his best to control it, he could not hide his heartache. After deliberating for a long while, Elvis only said one sentence. It's all right, I'm here to bring you home. With that, Elvis carried Gu Mingming and turned to leave. Other than Gu Mingming, he did not even look at anyone else. Walking out of Nina's territory, Gu Mingming started to choke with sobs. By the time she reached Elvis's territory, Gu Mingming had already cried so much that she could not even make a sound. She could only open her mouth wide to let out a gasp, with tears flowing down her cheeks. It would be nonsense to say that Gu Mingming's crying was beautiful. Now her nose was full of tears and mucus. She was as pathetic as she could be and as ugly as she could be. But even so, Elvis still felt an unprecedented heartache. It was as if something in his left chest was being torn apart by sharp claws and fangs, being gnawed away bit by bit until nothing was left. Aside from the topic, hello everyone, this is Mr. Automatic Update of Stored Manuscripts. Chapter 164. Even Gu Mingming herself did not know when she fell asleep. It was only when her throat was so dry that she had no choice but to open her eyes. Only then did she realize that her eyes were swollen like peaches and she could only open them a little. Elvis brought a cup of water to Gu Mingming's mouth and she took it without hesitation and started gulping it down in big mouthfuls. Elvis was afraid that she would choke, so he patted her back lightly. After Gu Mingming finished drinking, she returned the cup to Elvis and stood up to walk out without saying a word. Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's wrist and asked, "You still want to find him?" Gu Mingming knew that the he Elvis was referring to was definitely Leah. Just thinking of that name made Gu Mingming's heart ache. She did not have the confidence to see Leah again and hear those heartless words again. So she shook her head in denial. Elvis heaved a long sigh of relief and the strength in his hand relaxed a little. He did not want to see Gu Mingming's heart-wrenching look again. Elvis took a step forward and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms, saying, "Your feet are all bruised and are not suitable for walking for now. Where are you going? I'll bring you there." Gu Mingming lowered her head to look at the bottom of her feet. There was a large patch of bruised skin with traces of blood seeping through it and it looked rather miserable. But why did she not feel any pain? Oh, perhaps there was a limit to the pain a human body could feel? It was all concentrated on her heart and she could not feel any other parts of her body. But Gu Mingming did not reject Elvis's suggestion. Her throat could barely open to speak after drinking water, but it was extremely hoarse. Every word that came out of her mouth felt like a small knife was slicing her throat. "I want to go to the lakeside, the place where I first met you." Elvis did not know what Gu Mingming wanted to do. In fact, he could not understand most of the things that Gu Mingming did. But to Elvis, as long as Gu Mingming did not cry, he had no opinion on what she wanted to do. So, Elvis took out a thicker piece of beast skin and wrapped Gu Mingming up. Although winter was not here yet, the weather had already turned cold and he could not let his Xiaoming freeze. Gu Mingming did not resist and let Elvis do everything on her body. Gu Mingming, who had been as quiet as a rag doll, only reacted when Elvis carried her to the lake where they first met. Elvis's lips curled up slightly as he pointed at the surface of the lake. "That day you were standing there with half your body in the lake. The water reflected on your face and you looked like a lost elf. I couldn't help but get close to you, but I was afraid to disturb you. Then, you actually kissed me." Elvis sunk into his memories. It had only been a short while, but now that he was back here, he felt as if it was a lifetime ago. Gu Mingming wanted to get down from Elvis's arms, but Elvis did not stop her and placed her down according to her wishes. Gu Mingming ignored Elvis's words, or rather, she ignored everything. Gu Mingming walked towards the lake, taking off the beast skin Elvis had on her as she walked. In the end, she was only left with the bikini she was wearing when they first met. She stopped by the lakeside and turned around to look at Elvis. Her lips curled up slightly as she said to Elvis, "Sorry, thank you. Goodbye." After saying that, Gu Mingming fell backwards, causing a huge splash. Gu Mingming curled up her body and held her breath, forcing herself to sink into the water. She wanted to go back, return to the place where she belonged. There was no bloody bonfire party, no twisted marriage values, no Elvis, no Leah. Aside from the topic, that you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.